Statement, just excited to get started. It feels like the last time we played football for real, not spring practice, it feels like it was forever ago. So really excited to start forming our identity, developing our young players, developing our older players into better players, developing leaders, and at the end of the day, developing a team that can sustain a 14, 15 game season. So with that, let's go questions.
You better give me the microphone.
We got a microphone?
You better just say it real loud.
Hang on. You got to stand up, walk around, actually do some work. Okay. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Tom.
I guess if you don't have a microphone, it's not your turn.
I got to pinch you for a thing.
You're good.
You come to more person.
You're good.
Tom, you talked a few times about one of the keys for your club this year, your team this year, was leadership that you don't have, that you're working toward. How are you going? How is that as far as the work in progress?
I think really good. You know, certainly Greg Ward has definitely come out of his shell. He's much more comfortable in the offense, much more comfortable in his own skin, and has even throughout spring, you could see spring ball, you could see him growing as a vocal leader, and then throughout summer conditioning. You know, the good thing is the NCAA allows us to be out there now during summer conditioning, so we can kind of examine and see what, you know, who's doing well, who's not doing well, and all that good stuff. So Greg's doing well. I think it'll be probably a landslide in terms of voting for captains for 4 guys. I won't name all 4 of them, but you know, Cam Malvo is doing a heck of a job leading the defense. The guy that leads in an interesting way on defense too is Matt Adams. He's kind of a unorthodox leadership style. He's very intense. Doesn't always quite say the right thing, but he can definitely get the defense going in the right direction. So I feel good about where we're at. You know, not near as good as I did last year at this time. Because, you know, we're talking about, and basically one guy, Landon Roberts, you know, that one guy that I would put, you know, him and JT Barrett in my leadership Hall of Fame, and then really everybody else is kind of on a next level kind of deal. So we got to get 1 or 2 guys hopefully up into that stratosphere, and if we don't, then how do you overcome that? You overcome that with numbers, and so we had 1 or 2 vocal leaders last year, with one being an uber, you know, one of the greatest leaders to probably walk through this door. So if we don't have that one just super vocal guy, then we're going to need a bunch to come and join the fray. And I think we got a bunch of really good kids that are up for the challenge.
I mean, this may be along the same lines, but obviously huge expectations. You've been around them a little bit. How are they kind of dealing with those expectations? What are you telling them about dealing with those expectations?
They don't. Our internal expectations have never changed, and that's to go 1-0 every day, and that's to win our conference championship, period. That's it. And so I think our culture of inclusion, of isolation, if you will, creates this kind of force field around our guys and a maturity level such that, am I oblivious to the fact that they hear it? Yeah, they hear it. I know they hear it. You can't go anywhere without hearing it. But the really cool thing is they're not listening to it. And that's where you show some maturity as a team, is where you can not forget. And again, our culture will smack them in the face the minute they walk in the door and they start talking about expectations or talking about this or that, or even the Oklahoma game, because it's 4th and inches every single second of every day when they walk in that building to train. And if they don't have their foot firmly on the gas pedal and they let up in just a smidgen, they're going to get hit in the face with a shovel.
Tony already alluded to the narrative that you're trying to get this team to understand. You walked in last year, you got these guys who believe in you, trust in you, and all of a sudden now you have a spectacular season. You make a benchmark win in the Peach Bowl. So Now, Coach Riddick, if you, somebody who's followed this program for a pretty long time, that was probably synonymous to say young Phil Young taking the team up to East Lansing and beating a Michigan State team with your Peach Bowl. But what do you do now different to change the narrative for these guys coming forward now?
Absolutely nothing. We have a saying around here, we ain't changing, and we're not. It is business as usual. The only good thing about this year was that in the summer training months, our veterans knew what to expect. Last year, every day was a new day. You know, every day, you know, it was they didn't know kind of what to expect from a training standpoint. This year, they know what to expect from Coach McKnight and his crew down in the weight room, and so the indoctrination of the young kids, the newcomers, the historic signing class into our culture was very smooth, and so we're not going to do, you know, last I checked, you know, people talk about what are you going to do for an encore, what are you going to do different, guys, we're going to do exactly what we did last year to prepare to win a conference championship, and you know, the names have changed a little bit from personnel standpoint, but I'm of the mindset, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And certainly what we did last year wasn't broken. And can we enhance it? Sure. We had a staff retreat last Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and where we kind of all of us coaches come together and we bounce ideas off of each other. And we've got a few wrinkles here and there in terms of, you know, we're going to go a little earlier in the morning to stay out of the heat, mainly because our grass practice field is in such bad shape that we need to practice on the turf a little bit more, so we've got to go earlier in the morning because in the afternoon that turf is a good 15 degrees hotter. So, I mean, minor adjustments like that, but at the end of the day, what we did last year worked pretty well, and we'll continue to run our program that way.
Tom, and some of the turnover, especially on special teams with having to replace the snapper and the punter, who were some of the candidates to fill those roles?
For deep snapper would be Zach Ferris and a young walk-on named Wildberger, I believe is his name, from Katy. He's a freshman that's actually really good. And I think he went to Blinn first out of high school. You're nodding like I don't know anything.
I'm just agreeing with you.
Oh, I don't keep track of deep snappers at all. I'm just telling you. And then at punter right now is Kyle Postma with hopefully one that I can't comment on yet until we put him on scholarship. Hopefully that one can take some of the load off of Postma.
Two quick questions over here.
Where are we? Hello.
Hey, I heard you on one of the radio shows talk about how you can't talk about the Peach Bowl. Can you elaborate on that part of it? And then also, in terms of the Oklahoma game, you said it wasn't going to make or break the season necessarily, but how could a game like that kind of set the tone for this game?
To your first question, yeah, as soon as we got back from Christmas break, we celebrated. I say that team celebrated the Peach Bowl for a good 2 weeks, and rightfully so. They earned it. They worked harder than maybe any team in the country to achieve that. And then when we started with winter conditioning, everybody was in gray shorts with no logo and a white cotton T-shirt with a giant question mark on it to symbolize the fact that everybody's a question mark. Nobody is established. We haven't done anything yet. And in fact, to the point where we refer to last year's team as that team or that championship team because we have not done anything yet. We is the 2016 team. And what happened last year, can we learn from the examples of some of the great individual sacrifices and hard work and dedication? Absolutely, and we will. We'll call upon those examples. But other than learning from those examples, that season's not going to help us do anything this year. And so you're not allowed to say the word Peach Bowl. We can't wear Peach Bowl gear in team activities. We're not allowed to say Florida State in a team setting. So all of it just a reminder, a very poignant reminder that this team has to be developed now and can't rely on anything then. And then to your point about the Oklahoma game, Yeah, we will not talk about Oklahoma. We haven't. Again, I can't remember if it was Pat Hill or Paul Johnson, but one of them told me they had a huge game against, big time underdog against a nationally ranked program for the first game. And, ever since the January winter conditioning, they do one extra jumping jack or one extra rep on the bench press, or they break down on, beat Oklahoma on 3. I mean, since January. And they played hard and they played well, but they lost. And the coach said, I didn't get my team back for a good 4 or 5 weeks. And that's not going to happen to us. If we happen to beat Oklahoma, great. But the last time I checked, Mike Oresco, our conference commissioner, is not going to walk out on the 50-yard line and hand me the American Conference trophy. 10 days from then, we've got to go on the road on a short week on a Thursday night blackout national TV ESPN game and play an American Conference game. And so training camp will be as it always is. And you say, how will that first game set the tone? The exact same way the Tennessee Tech game set the tone last year. I mean, it's the first game, and we'll spend the first 2.5 weeks of training camp preparing ourselves and our team, and then the last 10, 14 days of training camp, game planning for our first opponent, as we always do.
Joseph.
Tom, going back a couple of questions where you mentioned focus and you're not changing anything. For you personally, though, not even talking about you gave the topic, Big 12 is out there. Everybody's talking about it, your fans, your administration. How do you personally handle that, or you tune it out, or what do you do with such a huge topic being discussed, and it has to do with you and your program?
Yeah, similar to, and had your sports editor allowed you to come to Newport, Rhode Island, you could have asked me that there. But I think similar to the expectation question, do we hear it? Yeah. But do we listen? No. I mean, because we're a mature enough team. We had David Bassity come in and do a team meeting last week, kind of the do's and don'ts of what to say, and not to, get yourself, stuck in a corner by saying something silly. But at the end of the day, all that stuff is well above my pay grade. Those decisions are, and by the way, you misquoted me. I didn't say ADs, I said presidents, boards of regents, and politicians. That's who makes those decisions. They're not asking football coaches, they're not asking football players. So, and I use this example. I only think about things that I can control, and I only use brain cells. I've got very limited brain cells up here, bro, and so they're at a premium. And so, I use the example, I can't control the Eastern European economy, right? So guess what I don't think about? The Eastern European economy. I can't control it. So it's the same with all this mumbo jumbo talk about expansion and all that. Nobody's asking me. I have no control over it, nor does my team. So, we're not going to waste brain cells thinking about things that we can't control.
Coach, with the limited number of sales that you can use, you lost some key people defensively. Let's bring it back to the season. Jackson and Landon, Stewart, and I think pleasantly, and you said this time last year, that the defense would surprise a lot of people. How do you go about replacing key figures like that played such a big part in last year's success?
Well, you don't replace E-Rob's leadership, that I can tell you. He's a once-in-a-decade kind of leader. And A-Max was a really good leader too, Adrian McDonald. And so we feel really good in the back end, and by the back end I mean our secondary. The talent is there. It's youthful, it's inexperienced, but it's physically and mentally mature enough and ready, or will be ready. Obviously, we've got some preparation to do throughout training camp. But the beauty of having a green secondary is our front seven will be as good a front seven as our offense will play against all year, save for maybe Oklahoma. And that's encouraging, one, because if our offense can get good against our front seven, then we got a chance the entire season. And the second thing is everything on defense starts up front. We're great how to be a great cover corner, have a great pass rusher in front of you. You know how to be a great linebacker and stopping the run, have great D tackles in front of you that can chew up double teams. And so I feel like our defensive front is not just going to be the backbone of our defense, but probably our whole team from an experience, talent, and production standpoint.
Coach, on yesterday you alluded to several things, but more so.
Oh, yeah, you were in Newport, yeah.
Yeah, I'm always there.
I know.
Talk about, expound on more so the offensive line and then the physical improvement, upgrade in Greg in the offseason.
And Greg Ward?
Yes.
Okay. The offensive line, I mean, night and day. I mean, it was awful having to play, you know, 3 freshmen in the offensive line for as long as we did last year. But the silver lining in that cloud was that those kids got a ton of experience. And now, with most of them having only gotten there in June, let's not forget they didn't even have a spring ball or a winter conditioning. And now they've had a full, you know, cycle of training with Coach McKnight. I mean, they're leaner, they're stronger. Hopefully we can, you know, start the same 5 for more than a couple of weeks in a row together so they can build a cohesiveness. But just as an example, so Josh Jones, left tackle, he got here, probably couldn't bench press his weight, but he got here last year. He was 6'5.5", 238. He's now 292 pounds, and he's added, like, I think something like 200 pounds to his squat, like 100 pounds on his bench in a year. And so to see that development, a kid put on 55 pounds of good, solid muscle and still be able to move the way that he moves, I mean, just a shining example of, you know, the Midas touch that Yancey McKnight and his staff have. Where have I seen Greg's improvement physically? Not a ton physically in terms of, you know, mechanically or whatever. I think you'll see a more relaxed Greg in the pocket, which will maybe allow him to be a little bit more accurate, although he was, you know, 67.5% completion percentage last year. But obviously the biggest difference is, and you know, I've said it before, I'm almost embarrassed to tell everybody, but I'm actually not, because it'll kind of prove his commitment throughout the last 9 months. When he weighed in the day before the Peach Bowl against Florida State, he was 171 pounds. And, you know, you good?
Working on it.
Okay. So he was 171 pounds the day before the Peach Bowl, and yet, you know, he stood on that stage winning the Most Valuable Player Award. Now he's walking around somewhere between 188 and 190 pounds, and that's every day. Last year was not, I mean, it was, we had the whole 185 pound rule on him, and for the 3 days before weigh-in, I'm sure he drank nothing but milk and you know, water, and probably constipated himself on purpose and the whole 9, and got up to 185 pounds, and then, you know, 4 days later he's back to 178, you know. And so this time it's real weight. I mean, the kid's, he's bigger, he's bulkier, and the beauty of it is he feels faster and quicker and stronger and more explosive. And so hopefully that weight will, it's strength weight, it's not bad weight, it's strength weight. And so hopefully all of those things will be true in terms of him being faster, quicker, more explosive, but it'll also be more durable.
Tom, how big of an advantage do you have going into this season? A year ago, your guys were so excited to go into your system and get it going, but now they know your system works. They just follow what the system is. It's going, how big an advantage is that?
It's huge. You know, that there are people with second-year head coaches all across the country that, you know, you're nervous if you don't show some improvement, that your players in that locker room are going, well, what the heck, what is this guy talking about? You know, and so having had that kind of success in year 1, we talk about the word testimony a ton in our program. And, you know, I use the example of, you know, when that team beat Louisville, that championship team beat Louisville last year, I went in the locker room, and because we still had a bunch of guys that were kind of 1 foot into the culture, into into how difficult we make things. And I went in that locker room, and fence riders, I called them. They were fence riders. And I went in and I said, I kind of got mad after a big win like that. I got mad, and I said, what more do you need? What more do you need? You need us to go up to Green Bay and beat the Green Bay Packers? Because we'll go do that if that's what it takes to get everybody in. And I think that was a seminal moment for that team last year, where the guys that were in kind of had my back in the locker room and said, hey, the crazy guy's right. Get in or get out. And we had more get in than got out. And so I think, to your question about this year, yeah, they don't ask, they don't evaluate, we say jump, they say how high, and then especially the newcomers, it's a very quick assimilation, or you're going to get your face taken off by some of the veterans.
Off topic, but your reaction when you heard that William Jackson was injured.
Oh man, crushed. I had just talked to him that Monday at ESPN. I had gotten a report. It's a funny story. I had gotten a report that he had bought a Bentley, and so I was calling to rip his tail and yell at him for wasting his money. And he assured me, no, coach, I rented one when I was in Houston for a couple of weeks. And I said, okay, you're a first rounder, you can do that. And so I called to rip his ass, or rip his tail. Sorry.
Hey, we all grown here.
Yeah. And then we just started talking again, and just telling me how much fun he's having, how easy practice is compared to, our practices. And then, boom, I get on the plane yesterday in Newport, and I'm scrolling through my Twitter, and I take that back. I got a text from Braden Combs, who's Kerry Combs, the DB coach at Ohio State. His son is the special teams coordinator for the Bengals, and so he gave me the news about the MRI and the severity of it, and I called Willow and just, we cried together, but, if there is a silver lining, as some may have pointed out, or maybe they haven't, they got to pay him all his money, all of his year one money, and corners are, they live and die by the strength of their legs, and there's only so many miles on your legs. And so at the end of the day, maybe this can maybe prolong his career for a year or two, and maybe get him that one last contract on the tail end of his career, because he didn't expend so many miles on the front end.
Tom, what did your thoughts about the media preseason poll that has you unanimous to win the West and overwhelming favorite to win the conference?
Nothing.
Say again?
Nothing.
That's it?
That's it. That's all she wrote. That's all, that's all, folks.
Tom, you mentioned the historic signing class. What are going to be the measures to determine if any of those guys see the field this year?
Necessity and productivity, really, at the end of the day. We need guys in the secondary. So those that produce will play. We've got 2 corners, and then Brandon Wilson's going to play nickel, and he would be the 3rd corner, and so we'd have to put somebody in a nickel. Long story short, we need some depth there. A guy like Mobakar's got a great opportunity to go win himself that second team tailback spot, because nobody really emerged throughout spring ball. We need a slot receiver, and Isaiah Johnson's not a slot receiver. He played it in spring out of necessity when Rashad got a concussion, and so this is a big training camp, not only for Rashad to prove that he's worthy of taking that coveted spot that DeMarcus Harris left, but big for Marquez Stevenson. Can he be the guy to beat out Rashad and start as a true freshman? And Ed Oliver, everybody wants to talk about Ed. Last time I checked, though, Ed Oliver's got 4 NFL D linemen in front of him on the depth chart, so he's going to have his work cut out for him. There is not a doubt in my mind. Now, where they get drafted, if they get drafted, whatever, there's not a doubt in my mind that B.J. Singleton, Cameron Malvo, Nick Thurman and Gerard Carter will all play in the National Football League if they stay healthy throughout college. So that's 4 guys. We only played 3. So you got 4, and you're the 5th. Now, you better go, you got to be 2 guys out just to go play. So I think, you know, with any 2 days, and it is historic, you know, the signing class, I mean, there's some talent that walked through that door that this place hadn't seen, and as freshmen, maybe a couple guys as transfers, or maybe a couple guys that got developed, but as freshmen, my gosh, you watch Mobile Car run around out there with his shirt off, and it's like, oh, I think the kid's 18 years old, you know, or Ed Oliver, you know, I mean, his traps touch his ears, you know, and he's 18 years old, and he's probably got a 38-inch vertical too, you know, and so there's a lot of talent in that class, but we're going to, necessity in terms of where do we need the help the most, and then can you produce in practice?
Straight at Tom. What can you tell us about running back Duke Catalan and what he could potentially add to the offense that maybe hasn't been there in years past?
You know, the superlatives are endless. I really like Duke. It took me a while to like him because he's such a quiet guy, and I thought he was a too cool for school guy. You know, like, hey, I don't talk to anybody because I'm too cool. But it turns out he's just really serious, really focused, and that's okay. But he's 220 pounds, and he is a punishing runner. When you hit him, you feel it, not the other way around. And so he can get us the tough yards inside, but yet he's fast enough and elusive enough that if we can get him on the perimeter, you know, he's got some home run ability too out in space. So very, very much a combination of what we had last year in Kenneth Farrow and Ryan Jackson. Kind of put those 2 guys together, their best attributes, and there you have Duke Catalan.
Anything else?
Double hand slap. All right. Thank you.